Yeah, so they just want to talk a little bit more about the separate reality. You've got the separate reality of the dominating force bringing in their separate reality to a new country or a new place. You've got the separate reality of our own individuality going on, of the totality of our energy, reflecting what's going on via the law of attraction. And you've also got the separate reality between the feminine and the masculine. So they talked a bit about almost the subtle battle between the masculine and the feminine. And we've had pasts where it's come up with mindfulness, the feminine has come up, and paganism and spirituality, the feminine will come up and then will be knocked back down. So if one of the important things that the brain related and the masculine wants to do is to make sure that really that the feminine doesn't have power, really. But let's not get confused and think that the feminine and masculine exists within both sexes. So they're specifically talking about the feminine within us, both the male and female within us. And making sure that the feminine doesn't have sovereignty and the feminine doesn't have power. But so one of the key ways to make sure that the feminine doesn't have the power is there's worthlessness. So bring down the worth of someone, the feminine part, and mad, loopy, gaslighting type of effect, lack of confidence, really lack of believing in oneself, self-doubt, shame. That, again, not to say that the masculine doesn't have. This is where it's contained, though. It will be these feelings will be contained within the feminine of the male, for example, or the female. So, going back to the subjugation of the feminine within, male or female, is about making sure that instinctive part of us, that inner self of us, is always less than or needs approval, needs to please, needs to perform. It's slightly nuts, it's nutty, it's mental. Anything that can indoctrinate the feminine into believing it is less than. It's all about keeping away the power from the feminine. Because that's where the truth lies. The power is in the feminine part of ourselves. The true power to change the outside, our inside and outside, reflecting it. The true power lives there. The true power of creativity lives there. And the pattern is to make sure that the power doesn't reach the feminine. And the ways to do that are through subtle indoctrination, more subtle nowadays. It used to be that women were property, really, and regarded, and in some parts of the world they still are. But to make sure that they are persecuted and hurt, and we have to look at the sexual violence as well. Is a successful way of subjugating, of making something fearful, to not challenge that more masculine power that's going on. But all these things are still here, but they're all, should we say, in the UK, in the Western society, perhaps more subtle. You know, laws have been now, equality laws have been put in place, but the subtlety of it, the indoctrination is within ourselves. The need to please, for example, to a greater or lesser extent in some women, not so much in others, but the sense of worth, the sense of the feminine though, in the sense of the inner self not being valid and just being a bit mentally deranged. Because we're believing that, if we're a male or a female, we're believing that. And if the rational can keep us continuing to subjugate that part of ourselves, in a sense, the rational keeps sovereignty, which we've talked about in the brain, was the incorrect balance. The brain is not going to take us to creating our own lives as we want it. It is our focus and our will that's doing that. The brain may take the credit for it. The brain will be creating something we've already created with our own will and our own focus. So refer to the brain video on that, because it is quite complex to put all across in one video. Yeah, so there's a subjugation of the feminine still, and in different societies it's to a greater or lesser extent, but again the reality is being made so that the mouse is wound up and it runs and runs and runs and runs and runs and runs and runs, and all sorts of kinds of behaviour are accepted, not tolerated, regarded negatively in the feminine. You know, the ways of thinking, the thinking with the feeling is regarded as irrational. All that negativity that's put onto instinct and following your heart or following your feelings. But we know when people are feeling different. We instinctively know when something has changed, when a mood has changed. We feel it, we feel things. And it's so strange that the brain will say to us, well, you know, you didn't see it visually, so that doesn't exist. We're still doing that. We're still doing that to ourselves. We're saying we didn't visually, rationally see it, therefore it doesn't exist, but we completely feel it. You know, somebody might have come up and verbally attacked us, and we would have felt the vindictiveness from them. We would have felt it perhaps. And yet we will believe if someone else comes along and says, well, it didn't happen. That person didn't do that. You know, you would have seen and felt more than one spirit operating in that body. If it was very powerful and very vindictive, for example, you almost might have seen a multiple of faces. It was kind of, ooh, that was so vicious. Why was that person suddenly so vicious? We are still not listening to our feminine. We're shouting and screaming sometimes and saying, you must listen to our feminine, you must listen to our feminine, you're not listening to our feminine. We're pointing finger again sometimes. No, we must listen to our feminine. I must listen to my feminine. You know, if it's already gone out to pointing the finger, it's a level step forward from the self, from the inner self, the feeling self. I must listen. I saw that person. I felt that person. I felt the vindictiveness from them. They were vindictive to me. We're still, but again, pointing that finger, you know, this change. And that's not to say that change isn't good, you know, and change isn't part of it, But we need to, within the feminine, we need to have the I. We need to start not poo-pooing all of the feelings we have. We recognise when we feel a predator in the room. We just know. We avoid certain people. We know when people are toxic towards us. We know these things. And yet we'll want to rationalise it. These are separate worlds. Rational is a separate world too. The brain is not going to agree with us. It doesn't see from the same perspective. It will be looking for the rational, the visual and the rational, the signals, the signs, etc. How many times have we said, well, that did happen, I felt it, but yet no, I couldn't really provide proof of it. I couldn't really to myself, therefore it's non-existent and I won't listen to myself. So this is the inner battle that we now have between the feminine and the masculine, the internal one. But the battle is very much an inner one, because the law of attraction will only reflect what we change inside. So the inner battle, we've been subjugated still and are told we are less than. We have to perform as females. It's internal. It's internal to us. We have to perform as females. Almost each generation now in the West is a little bit less that. But if the women are still removing most of their clothes in society and performing in order to perform and please, we're still not getting there. We're still operating with a limp. You know, we're not elevating our inner feminine to equal, but actually elevating the feminine must have sovereignty over that rational, because the rational will only reflect the law of attraction, whereas the inner feminine will reflect energy, true energy of ourselves. So we're still subjugating, more so in the modern generation, we're subjugating our own feminine. You know, we have to change the way we look in order to be, to be acceptable. First of all to ourselves, inner first of all. Please ourselves first of all. But once we heal these wounds, we don't feel that need to please. The please is only coming from a place of not being good enough in certain wounds areas. And then we will find that we please ourselves wonderfully and naturally. And we don't need to then please an audience to match our wound. We don't need to do that. Doesn't mean we all go around feeling and looking ugly. We're not saying that. It's just it's an inner thing first of all, and healing the wounds that we have, the abuses that we've received, is key. Is key to that. We're still stuck pleasing. But sometimes the patterns just are in the tonal world, and they just click away, tick, 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 you know, like blueprint, like DNA. And we don't really know why we're doing them. You know, we don't know why. And obviously it's in our DNA as females to care for the family and be at home. And it was in our DNA for the men to go out hunting, etc., etc. That is all, all of this is tied up in our DNA. But we're still subjugating our own female. And if we are internally or externally looking to please, we are still, we're on the assumption straight away that we are less than. And it's like we almost can't see that we're doing that. We almost can't see it because it's so blurred. It's still, the feminine is still pushed down, and we don't see it yet because we're so used to it, but it is. It's not that many generations away that we were property. Female, the actual female person was property. You know, but the feminine has these residues of persecution still within her. And the onus is on ourselves still not to point those fingers, oh, you're doing this to me, to me, to me, but to find those parts in ourselves, to clean up the wounds, and then find those parts of our feminine where we are justifying our existence. The feminine justifying itself to the masculine. The feminine justifying its madness to the logic of the brain. And actually the brain is not the master. The brain is there to serve the inner self. Feminine, brain, masculine. In those terms, the brain is there to serve the inner self of our feelings, inner self of our truth. The brain is our greatest help. It's a helper. It's not, and in our society, if we've made it a god, whereas it's a great helper, it's fabulous, it's like AI, but it's not, it doesn't have the wisdom to lead. It's reactive. The brain is reactive to survival, to pain, pleasure. It's reactive. It should not have the ability to lead, but because we're subjugating that feminine still, we are still harping back to old systems that don't serve us as men and women. They don't serve us going forward so well because we've got it slightly cocked up, because we've been told for so many centuries how the system should work between men and women and between the masculine and the feminine within us. We've been told that this is the right way around. And then we'll get pockets of the mindfulness and pockets of this coming up. And there's this no kind of, generally speaking, the logic will always win through, because what we can see visually, we will believe. As opposed to starting to turn and say, what about what we're seeing and feeling energetically? What if I live my day energetically? What if I focus my day on how I'm using my energy today with the wonderful, fantastic help of my brain? That way round.